Thank you everyone for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence relative to healthcare. And my name is Matt Kinn. I am a healthcare segments development manager here for Access Americas. And what I do is I work with solutions relative to healthcare that can benefit from Access technologies. And I'm joined here today by Mr. Steven Jusam, my cohort. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, appreciate you having me. So my name's Steven Jusam. I'm a solutions engineer here at Access. So I am fortunate to work with all of our products and technology as well as a number of our different end customers, really educating them on the solutions that we can bring to market.
Fantastic. And so we'll probably do the little housekeeping thing here too before we dive into artificial intelligence and healthcare. Is what we wanted to put together here for everybody tuning in is a series of podcasts that are a little bit longer form, a little moving away from like more of a soundbite type configuration to discuss context around artificial intelligence and its use cases relative to healthcare. It is a very tricky subject. It's a very popular subject as well too, because it's a very powerful tool. But we want to avoid any misunderstandings about what its intentions and its use cases are. Artificial intelligence in general has moved from a computer programmer's computer to dining room table discussions. And so I kind of think with that, we should probably just dive right into it, Steve.
Yeah, it'd be really good to just kind of take that scary term of AI, everyone thinks the Terminator, and really make it more digestible to see how it can fit in the day-to-day workflows of a healthcare institution, because there's some really powerful stuff out there. So how do we get that in their hands?
Absolutely. And so establishing a baseline, right, of what artificial intelligence is it is a form of computer science where computers are developed to simulate that of intelligent thought, right? And I think it's very important the word simulate, right? It's not, we're not talking sentient in reference to the Terminator.
Almost.
Oh, Steve, we're going to get in trouble for that. No, I kid. But in reality, forms of machine learning are used to train these computers.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're trained to analyze images or series of images for like a scene to be able to make conclusions and draw conclusions about that scene. And machine learning is one of the earlier artificial intelligence models. It's definitely a very popular one in the space.
It's used quite a bit.
Absolutely. And it's really good for processing scenes that you need to be able to have good detections on, or there's more of a static environment. And how it's done as a vehicle is you are processing these images through a form of algorithms to generate these conclusions, right? If you go to deep learning, you look at processing very complex algorithms going through a form of neural networks, right? In which to kind of break down, right, for the neural networks, for all my computer vision enthusiasts or curious folks out there, is think of a hierarchy of thought or computation for that matter. And what they're doing is it's very abstract too. It's not like directly like vertical layers. They're very abstract in certain ways. Each layer is drawing conclusions from an inference of a previous layer to get more detailed results. And so we can either have very good, if not excellent, classifications at times, or it's better for very good classifications in a very, I would say, dynamic environment, like non-static scenes, very busy scenes in that case. So,
I mean, I would even say from a different perspective, the deep learning models really are based on a lot of data. So a lot of these algorithms are trained,
right,
and data sets are built. And in the video camera world, if you really want to build a good data set for a good AI-based algorithm, well then you're going to need a lot of images from particular viewpoints with whatever actions that you're trying to capture. And you just continue to build that data set. So it becomes more and more accurate. So that goes back to those data sets and then filling into those neural networks. At the end of the day, they're not self-learning. It's a bunch of data that's put together. And that's really what we're talking about today. For having highly accurate alarms.
Absolutely. Data about data, because that's what's being created.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's important too, I mean, as part of this baseline is what are vehicles that are people using to get data about data, like from a hardware perspective, right? Separate whether it's machine learning or deep learning, even though it's relevant. I'm not saying it's not relevant in this space. It most certainly is, because obviously deep learning takes more power, it takes more computational power as well. But what are people using from a hardware perspective?
So it's done in a few different ways today. So if these technologies are being deployed, they can be deployed either in the cloud, they can be deployed on-prem, they can be deployed on the edge. On-prem is the older way of doing it, putting like a GPU in a server, running an algorithm that can produce whatever type of data set or alarm or tracking that you want to actually achieve. Another way that it's done a lot is in the cloud, where data, or in our case that we work a lot with, it is video. So video is sent to a cloud, which is just a server farm sitting over there. This thing of cloud.
What do you mean? It's not in the cloud?
It's not really in the cloud. It goes to the cloud.
I actually love cloud processing, but I mean,
cloud's fantastic. It really depends on the end customer's needs and what their objectives are.
Exactly.
And that brings me to what I really do like is the edge. And what we mean by edge is doing data processing on the camera. That really does make a whole system more efficient, because instead of having, let's just say, 100 cameras or 100 sensors, all sending everything that they're seeing or receiving to one source, and then it's being processed, we can do a lot of processing on the edge or the camera side and only send relevant data.
I understand.
So that's a lot of what we're working with today, and there's some really unique things that we can do.
Yeah, no. And so when you're saying edge, you mean the camera, not a server in the building.
Yeah.
Because I hear that confused all the time. Or it's because somebody understands that a server is the edge because it's at the customer site.
And it could be.
It's just a definition.
It could be. It depends. There's great server-side analytics.
Yep.
And that may fit into the workflow of some organizations, because maybe they don't have, maybe it's more feasible for them to deploy a server that's running analytics.
Sure.
But then you have to have, what that will really do is limit the scale of, how many devices can feed into that server. Where if you do it edge-based, now you do so much processing prior to that server receiving it, it just makes for a highly scalable, more efficient system.
No, and I also think it's important too that there's places for all of them.
There is.
And it really comes down to what problem you're looking to solve.
Yeah.
And so when we think of context of healthcare, there's a lot of problems that we're dealing. We're dealing with the community, right? And so when it comes to adoption of artificial intelligence within a security or an operational program, I think it's kind of very important to note that there's many different states of people's programs adoption, right? So I see, and we'll just go across the spectrum very quickly, as I see non-adoption, which is sometimes it's just they haven't done it yet, or there's just not an interest within the organization to specifically use this tool.
Yep.
Sometimes I see it where it's a little bit more negative, where there's non-adoption because things have, whether it was malicious or benign intent, it doesn't matter. They went to use something, it didn't work in their environment, or it wasn't a right fit, and maybe somebody recommended something that shouldn't have been there. Maybe they didn't even know the whole story, right?
Yep.
And there's just like a lack of belief or trust within the use of the tool, right?
Yeah, and that's something where I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because being in the industry for quite a few years now, we're at a stage where AI is relevant, the technology does work, and it can really be a strong benefit. So, I think back to that early adoption, like the applications where, analytics, some of the first ones were video motion detection.
Right.
That's actually the most popular analytic that people use today, and they don't think that's an analytic.
Right. It is looking for conditions in a scene.
It is.
Yeah.
But now we can take it one step further. So if you look at the most basic form of analytic, that's AI, deep learning based, it's very advanced motion detection algorithms that can detect humans, vehicles, and then you do whatever you want with that.
Attributes. And that actually is that's where I see the mixed adoption people, right? So if we on the spectrum of the non-adoption till we go to the mixed adoption. Mixed adoption is I see a lot of times people investing in the platforms or the hardware that can support it, where I've literally heard it's there if I need it, which I completely understand that too. They may not have a problem there today, but they may tomorrow.
Sure.
It's a dynamic environment. Another program within the hospital has moved into this space, and now all the elements have changed, or a new neighbor, what have you, right? Because these are largely community-based organizations.
Yep.
This mixed adoption, and then I see the bulk adopters, and typically, not always, but typically, I think the bulk adopters have what I would like to say like as acquired tastes. They are looking for the exact tool in the toolbox for the job, and sometimes it's almost boutique even.
Yeah.
Like,
I would agree.
I mean, so like going through some of these things that where I see these, and these are the common use ones, is workplace violence is huge.
Yeah.
Whether it's acoustic models, whether it's going to be actors, crowds. I mean, I see all sorts of bed exit alarms. I mean, and for those kind of listening, bed exit is like a huge issue within a hospital. It's the number one cause of injury within a hospital.
And if you can find a solution for that, you can save a facility and a healthcare organization quite a bit of money.
Well, and it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the money savings too, because it's not only that, but you're improving the patient or the resident experience.
That, I'm glad you said that. That actually hits on a huge topic that people don't really think too much about, is just improving overall patient care and patient experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And so I'm not saying you're going to prevent a bad actor. I'm saying that you can build things in a position where you can be more informed to make better decisions about these things. There's definitely things where you can, why is this exit blocked? Why are people outside this door right now? That's probably a problem we need to deal with.
It helps make the organization more efficient too, because if you're able to spend time doing your job and doing your core tasks versus doing tasks where it's who's focusing on what? It's time, it's money, it's resources, and that's what's really lacking in hospitals today. There's a lack of resources just because they're strapped, they're resource strapped. So how do we make them more efficient? I think that's where technology really comes into play.
Data-driven.
Data-driven technology, it has to be.
Yeah.
If it's not AI, analytic-based.
Well, and then I look at like occupancy levels. I look at color attributes. Where we get this request a lot is, I don't want to let anybody in this door that's not wearing the blue scrub, because they're not with our organization.
You're talking about clothes, and that's really
absolutely,
important, yeah.
absolutely. And so then we look at privacy, smoke detection, and I know this one, license plate recognition, which I know
It's
is
an important topic.
kind of near and dear to your heart, you would say, huh?
I spend a lot of time with LPR. Yeah.
No, not you. Anyways, so we'll bring you back for that.
All right, I
Because
appreciate
you get to.
I look forward to coming back.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, but like going through all these problems, we're looking to solve them. And we've kind of talked about a few things here and there where we're looking to do it, and some of them really deserve their own time. Like what I'm talking about bringing back. I would love to do an entire section on workplace violence.
Yep.
I would love to do an entire section on bed exit and fall detection or fall prevention programs, more importantly titled. Obviously, we'll bring back LPR. I've set the expectation with you now. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
But from adoption rates, do you think that it's more boutique today, or do you think it's more generic models today, or is there a deviation between the two?
Yeah, there's. It depends on the customer, and it depends on the customer and what stage they're at.
Sure.
Because a lot of customers are really just starting to adopt any form of analytics, especially when it comes to video analytics. And that's where that motion detection comes in, just detecting that someone is loitering outside of the maternity ward. And how does that fit into a workflow? Okay. But everything that's happened over the past few years has accelerated these conversations, where now more and more hospitals are coming to organizations like ours and asking, how can you help solve our problems to make us more efficient? We need something. Our staff is stretched thin. And you mentioned a few things like the patient out of bed, fall detection, acoustical alarms. There's definitely things that we can talk about in more detail that will help fit into healthcare organizations' workflows and tie into their systems that they already have today. That's actually another important topic, is don't go with those boutique solutions. Try to see how can whatever you're looking at, how does it fit into your existing software that you've already invested into? Interesting.
So you're saying avoid an echo chamber.
Yeah, if someone's coming to you saying they have an all-in-one solution and that's it, you only need them, We're all working together here.
You're saying there might be more details behind it. And so with that said, just so everybody listening in, they can kind of understand what we're talking about too, is that there's ways to get data out of a device or a system to be more interoperable with other communications platforms, potentially within the hospital, right?
Definitely.
So we look at nurse call, we look at computer systems, we look at EMRs, we're looking at security VMSs, we're looking at access control, HVAC systems, and you're saying, and I agree with what I think is what you're saying, is
exactly
that
what I'm saying.
we want to be able to route events to these people, to the relevant parties. So like for a bed exit, if they fall, we definitely want to notify security, but a bed exit really should go to bedside staff, geographically located by them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I completely agree with that. And where it's really where the computer vision systems come to life. And I think actionable events in live time are the gold standard.
Yeah.
And so you being, or an entity being trapped within, a proprietary system where they cannot integrate anything to, or the command language is so unique that nothing else can speak to it, and it in return come back, really is may lead to being as the solutions being overall viewed by the organization or the enterprise as low value, because only select few people can see it or get the.
I wouldn't say it's as much low value, but it just, we keep talking about it's that, how does it fit into my workflow? And you mentioned an acronym, and I just want to expand upon EMR.
Yes.
Emergency medical records.
Electronic medical records.
Electronic
or
medical
electronic
records.
health record, EHR. If you're my wife, EHR. Just so
There's a few different acronyms that we talk about on a day-to-day.
Yes.
But those are the types of systems that hospital staff live in day-to-day basis.
Without a doubt.
Talking about mobile apps. They even have mobile apps.
Yeah.
So, we talk about patient out of bed. If a nurse is on staff and they can be doing their rounds,
Exactly.
and at the same time they're monitoring patients or just waiting for an alarm to come off, it makes them more efficient. Especially if they can see a snip of the video and then respond to highly accurate alarms, all through an open platform system that they're already using today.
And you talk about highly accurate. Let's talk about alarm fatigue.
Yes, alarm fatigue is huge.
So what we'll see sometimes too when we go with an organization, and this is why we always recommend you test it in your environment. Any sort of AI model, any sort of deployment you're going to do, test it in your environment, see how it lives and breathes for you. Does it work? Does it not? And it's one of those things where you really want to be able to reduce the alarm fatigue in a way that the data is being routed so that only relevant alarms. So if I have a patient population that's not at fall risk, right, and they get out of bed, that may or may not be worth alarming on. And when I say alarm, notification, right? Whether it be some sort of command language to a different alarm communicator, or whether it be on screen, whatever maybe it's a light, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that may not be worth noting to that person responsible for that patient or resident's care. But what may be very relevant to anybody is if a fall took place, right? And so creating this hierarchy to reduce the amount of alarm fatigue is really, I would say, detrimental to the success of a program.
It kind of goes back to where we started when we talked about where we were and where we are today. And that kind of goes back to probably a lack of adoption today with some people because they do have alarm fatigue.
Without a doubt.
There's been organizations that we've worked with that invested in old school analytics, and I've had conversations where they basically just said, I turned them off. And that's where we got to continue to drive that message where today, there are products that exist today, solutions that exist today that will help prevent alarm fatigue because those alarms as they come in are traditionally very accurate.
Well, it's like wearing the right size shoe. Your feet probably won't hurt, right?
Yeah.
You need to make sure it works for you. And, I think visualizing those things too are very important for the success of a program, just as much as the alarm fatigue and getting the right product or the right solution in there or the right model, whatever it ends up being for this enterprise, whatever job they're trying to do, get the right tool, right? Is visualization of the data being collected is very important for these organizations. They need to be able to provide metrics to leadership or other stakeholders within the organization, the success of a program. And I think dashboards are probably the best way to do that because it's a way to visualize the data about data that's being generated.
Well, it goes back to another topic we just talked about, which is open platform. There's so many platforms that exist and that hospitals have already invested in. So if they can just take the data from whatever software or whatever device they're using and pull it into something they're already using that has the ability to generate reports, to create a dashboard, it's another powerful tool for them instead of this closed off system that only does one thing.
Without a doubt. No. And so I'm very appreciative that you said you're going to come back for LPR. I want to thank you for joining me today to be the first one. You are, in essence, the guinea pig, but I think it went relatively well.
I think so.
Okay.
I look forward to doing it again.
No, without a doubt. And thank you, Steve, for sitting in on it. I appreciate it. And for all of you listening in, I would like to thank you as well for joining us, but also to tune in again for the second series of this podcast about artificial intelligence in healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you.